Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Wild Wednesday webinar. My name is Paul Kiwi, and I'm the Executive Director of MIPA, and I'd like to welcome all of you. Wild Wednesday webinars are sponsored by TISPA, OPA, MIPA, PPA Chicago, PPA Wisconsin, UMAP, PPA Midwest, ASPA, RMR PPA, and the Promotional Marketing Association of Northern California. So welcome to everyone. Today's webinar is worth 1 CAS credit. At the end of the webinar, as you leave the meeting, you'll be directed to a survey. If you know your PIN number, I can send that into PPAI for you. If you don't know your PIN number, check with your local executive director, and hopefully they'll take care of you. On the right side of your screen, you'll see a chat box. As Bill's presenting today, if you have any questions, feel free to type those in there. If it bears interrupting, I will jump in and call Bill's attention to it. If it doesn't, he'll answer your questions at the end of his presentation. I'd also like all of you to mark your calendars for next month on April 26th, when we're going to have Seth Barrett from PPAI. He'll be speaking on how to market to millennials, everybody's favorite topic, and the M word. So mark your calendar for next month's Wild Wednesday webinar at the same time. Today's presentation is the lessons of 100%, strategies to sell more by reducing client friction, and I'm really pleased to have Bill Petrie as our presenter today. Bill's an industry veteran with lots of experience, particularly on the distributor side as a consultant, well-known and very popular speaker, member of the Promo Kitchen Chef Society, and currently the president of Promo Corner. And without any further ado, I'm going to let Bill take it away. Bill, it's all yours.
Thanks, Paul, and thank you all of you for joining me. It's always weird giving a webinar because I love to feed off an audience, so I'm just going to pretend when I'm laughing, you're laughing, and this will go just fine. So as Paul mentioned, I am a member of Promo Kitchen, and for those of you who are not familiar with Promo Kitchen is the largest or the fastest growing 501c3 not-for-profit in our industry, and we're focused on two things and two things alone. And those two things are education, and the other one is mentorship. I always like to point to our statistics of mentoring people in the industry. And in 2016, we had 68 successful partnerships and mentorship connections, which is really impressive, and we're really proud of that. So if you'd like to get involved with Promo Kitchen, if you'd like to either be a mentor or you'd like to be mentored yourself, please visit us at promokitchen.org. We'd love to help you. So I'm really here today to tell you we're in the middle of a cultural hurricane. I think we all know it, but it's impacting every single thing that we do. But it seems like a lot in our people in our industry don't really believe that. It doesn't feel like it, but really, trust me, we're in one. And if you don't believe me, let's look at some evidence. If we go back 40 years to 1977, this was the most effective and immediate form of communication. And I do remember having a rotary phone in my house growing up in suburban Chicago. If we fast forward 20 years, the rotary phone got push buttons. So it wasn't obsolete, but it did get an upgrade. But it wasn't much of a change. Now, if we fast forward from 1997 to 2017, 2017, you can see that we have completely, the home phone is now completely obsolete, right? We all walk around with what I always call our portable Google machines. They're right here. They're right in the palm of our hand. So it's made the home phone completely obsolete in the span of 20 years. If I look at sending files, in 1977, I would be using the U.S. mail to send large files. 20 years later, might be using a fax machine. Does anybody remember a fax machine? Remember when they were this big? I don't even know how many people have fax numbers anymore. But if we fast forward that same 20 years from 1997 to 2017, we're going to use two things. We're going to either use email to send large files, or if it's really large, we're going to use a service like Dropbox. So again, something that felt so technologically advanced just 20 years ago is now just about obsolete. Who remembers the Encyclopedia Britannica? Because that was the way you would learn about the world and get information in 1977. I always like to point out my kids wouldn't know what a 4-foot row of Encyclopedia Britannicas were to save their life. So if we fast forward 20 years, got a little bit of an upgrade. It went online and via a CD version from Microsoft Encarta, but it still had the same problem that the print edition of the encyclopedia had. Once it was printed, once it was put on that CD, it became almost obsolete because the world was changing so quickly. Fast forward 20 years, and what do we use? We use Google, right? And Google's fundamentally changed the way we search for information. When I was a kid and it was a rainy day and I was bored, I might pick up the Encyclopedia Britannica labeled T, and I might learn all about Texas, just stumbling across it. Now with Google, I have to know what I'm asking for. I have to ask about, tell me about Texas, or tell me the state capital of Texas. So it's fundamentally changed the way we get information. Now, as we start to look at our industry, or start looking at advertising as a whole, if you wanted to reach a mass audience in 1977, you'd do it on the #1 TV show with Starsky and Hutch. There were 3 channels, and you could have a very a focused and captured audience. If we fast forward from 1977 to 1997, you do the same thing, except the TV show would be Seinfeld. There were a couple more competitors. There was now cable television, but Seinfeld and the #1 over-the-air TV show still held the major sway when it came to advertising and influencing people. And in the same 20-year span from 1997 to 2017, the #1 way to reach people is through YouTube from an advertising perspective. And I don't know how many of you know this, but YouTube is actually the #2 search engine in the world behind Google. I know that my kids spend watching things on YouTube. They don't do it on television. So it's, again, fundamentally changed the way we even approach entertainment, because I remember as a kid, if I missed How the Grinch Stole Christmas, I'd have to wait till the next year till I watched it. Now it's available on demand just about any time. So if we really narrow this down to our industry, in 1977, the vast majority of distributors went to market with this, right? They went to market with catalogs. They go to a prospective client, they drop off catalog. Mr. Customer, tell me what you'd like me, anything in here we can decorate with your specific logo, your brand, and we can help you grow your business or get your marketing message across. If I fast forward from 1977 to 1997, it's really about the same thing. Most people still went to market with catalogs, and there was a lot of magic and mystery in what we do. Sadly, if we go to 2017, there are still quite a few distributors who go to market dropping off the catalog. So this is good news for hopefully all of you on this webinar right now. This is how a good portion of your competition is going to market. They fear technology. They fear millennials. And I know Seth Barnett's going to speak on that next month, and you're in for a treat because Seth is a tremendous speaker. But the folks that are doing that, they're in a sense sticking their heads in the sand. And here's what they refuse to believe about our industry. Our industry is really in the middle of a hurricane, like I said before. Information is easier to access than it's ever been before. The industry is consolidating both on the supplier side and on the distributor side. The supply chain is shrinking, and there really isn't any magic left in what we do. So the folks who are still going to market with catalogs in the old way, the way they've always done it, they know the world's changing around them, but they're paralyzed by fear to do really anything about it. So this hurricane that we're in, many fail to see it because we're in the eye of the hurricane. Things are swirling all around us, changing the way we go to market. Far too many people in our industry are clinging to the calm of that eye, thinking that that's going to last for a long time, and it won't. Those changes won't impact our industry. But here we are on Wednesday, March the 29th, and the current state of selling stuff, and by stuff I mean anything, but let's focus on what we do. We sell promotional products. As I said earlier, customers have access to more information than they've ever had before. And so it means for the first time really in the global economy, they're the ones in the driver's seat. And here's what they want. They want accuracy. They want efficiency. They really have no problem with either loyalty or switching. It really depends on the customer experience. And yes, that does include millennials. They still crave that bond they have with someone who provides them goods and services, but they really want those experiences. More than anything, they want a transaction that's as close to frictionless as possible. So we, on this call, on this webinar, we know the world's changing, right? The way goods and services have been sold for decades is changing. It maybe a better word is evolving. So the way goods and services have been sold, but while the world and our clients are evolving, the basic concept hasn't changed, and it won't change. And honestly, it hasn't changed for centuries. Business is based on transactions. Those transactions happen between a provider and a consumer. And both sides of that transaction are going to attempt to maximize the value of the transaction. So a distributor is going to try to maximize margin, right? And the end user is going to try to beat you up on price. And so that value is realized through the transaction. So at its core, your business, my business, anybody's business, it's based on the simple concept of exchanging value between the provider and the consumer. And even in the case when we're looking at something like free, there's an exchange of value. Let's go back to that Google example. It's a perfect example. They provide a free service. I don't pay anything to Google. And if you guys pay anything to Google, unless you're signed up through your company to do Google AdWords, you're not paying anything for Google. So they provide a free set of service or services in exchange for a couple things. They collect your data. So the reason when you search for a specific product in Google and then go to Facebook or go to another website, you'll see an ad that very similar or the exact same product or service you were looking at. They collect that data. They share it with people who they advertise with. So let's look a little deeper into the transaction. Just like a golf ball sitting on a tee, which you see here, which makes me want to go play golf, quite frankly, a business transaction doesn't happen without applying a little force. And I tend to think of most consumers to be in a constant state of rest. So, and if we know that an object at rest is going to remain at rest until it's acted upon by an external force, and I think that's Newton's first law, if my memory serves me correctly, that external force is you. So in our increasingly digital world, that external force can come from a number of directions. It could be a product search. It could be an online ad. It could be a recommendation from a friend or someone of influence. It could be a direct mail piece. It could be a spec sample. It could be a tweet. It could be attending an end user show. It could even be a cold call from a salesperson. So the first thing I want you to remember, and I'll have a little recap here, but the first thing I want you to remember is it is your full responsibility as the provider to create the force necessary to get the consumer moving. Once we get the consumer moving, we need to ensure a couple of things. One, we want them to continue to move in our direction, right? We don't want to move them outside of the direction we want to move them in. And we don't want to do anything to slow it down. And I have an expression when I use when I'm describing chaos, and it's called a goat rodeo. And this is exactly where the clients in your pipeline are. All of you, I'm sure, have a sales pipeline, and there's people at various stages in there. People don't want to be sold, but they do want to be convinced. They need to be convinced. So in the process of being convinced to purchase from you, they will start to move away from you until you convince them. This is where you can either help or hinder the purchasing process. And it's critical that as a provider, you have a specific understanding of your client's purchasing journey. Things like, what is their pain? How long have they experienced that pain? Why is it important for the pain to go away in the first place? What are the solutions have they tried? How much are they willing to spend? And how are they going to measure if if they feel the pain is eventually alleviated? And once you do this, and I'm sure many of you are already actually doing it, you can begin to shepherd your individual goats through their rodeos. So the second thing I want you to remember or write down is it's your full responsibility as the provider to understand your customer's purchasing journey and make it as easy you went to a sales training, to master sales training, you'd have to learn all the answers to those objections, the Ben Franklin close, the assumptive close, and all the little tricks to overcome them. But like I said earlier, we're primarily in a consumer-directed sales process. And largely these days, it's one that happens outside of human interaction, right? What do you do when you're thinking of buying something? Well, we go to our friend Google and we start doing research before we ever engage a salesperson. Our clients are no different. So that means overcoming any sort of resistance points, it is much more difficult, mainly because there's no one there to ask. You can't ask for a sale if you don't know somebody searching on Google. So there's no one to hear a potential objection. So what you have to do along the purchasing journey, you have to understand and anticipate what those resistance points are. So you need to understand that before they even engage with you. So you have to look at the purchasing journey of your clients and understand what the possible resistance points are. And Progressive Insurance is a great example of this. Car insurance is a price-sensitive service. It's complicated. It's got a billion variables. And every car insurance company has their own pricing scheme or to feel like they're getting a good price, even though it's something we're all required by law to purchase, right? We all have to purchase it, but I still want to feel like I'm getting a good deal. So Progressive knew this was a resistance point, and they slowed down the purchasing decision, or they knew that that resistance point slowed down the purchasing decision. But what they did to re-accelerate that was they realized and accepted two things. They knew, one, price shopping was going to happen. People, when they're looking for car insurance, are going to look for the best price. The second thing they accepted is that they understood if someone purchased from Progressive, but then later found out they could have gotten a better price, Progressive would ultimately lose that customer. So why not circumvent the process and show not only their price, but the price of their competition? And it was a brilliant move. In the first year that Progressive Insurance did this, their sales increased by 28%. That's a huge increase. They understood the transaction resistance point, and then they mitigated it. So again, the third thing I want you to write down, and I'll recap them here in a second, it's the full responsibility of you as the provider to understand the transaction resistance points and find ways to eliminate them. So here's a quick recap. So these are your responsibilities. You need to, number one, create the force necessary to move the client. Number two, you have to make the purchasing journey as easy as possible. I always like to say, we've all had experiences in our out-of-industry lives where we want to buy something and it's difficult. And I always make the joke with my wife when this happens. I'm trying to give somebody money and they're making it really difficult for me to do so. Don't make it difficult for someone to give you money. The third is understand and eliminate those resistance points. So what this is all working towards is a frictionless transaction, one without resistance points. But here's the thing. There's always going to be some friction. And I'm here to tell you that's okay, because the client knows there's friction. They know that the friction's inherent in the process anyway. And when we as salespeople, as consultants, whatever word you want to put on it, when we make that easier, when we remove some of the friction from the process, we inherently build value beyond simple decorated merchandise. We build value into the transaction, and it helps really establish that long-term relationship we all seek when we start working with clients. So how do we win? How do we beat the competition? How do we reduce friction to sell more? Well, what we do is we continually strive to give 100%. Now, there's reasons why I guarantee not all of us give 100%, right? There's reasons why that happens. And I'll go through a couple of those. The first one is maybe you're too comfortable. We all I always say when I'm giving this session in front of a group of people, I could ask all of you, let's take a break. Everybody go outside, grab yourself some coffee, get a Danish, get some water. And I guarantee you everyone would come back and sit in the exact same seat they were just sitting in. It's because it's comfortable. It's the same reason we take the same route to work every day. It's the same reason we go to the same restaurants. It's comfortable. Yes, it's probably good, but it's comfortable too. So if you become too comfortable, it's very difficult to give 100% to anything. So it's only by going beyond our comfort zone that we expand our own experiences and we stay sharp. We stay focused on giving 100%. Maybe you've got a bad attitude like Johnny Cash there. I'm from Nashville, so I can put this on a slide. But a bad attitude can impact is contagious. And if you have a bad attitude, there is no way you're going to be able to give 100% to your clients or what you're doing. No way at all. Maybe you're scared of failure. You know, I love this. I don't know who would paint open 9 days a week. That just cracks me up every time I see it. You know, kids always think that their parents and adults in general are fearless, and the reality is it's the other way around. I have stopped asking my kids how was school today, because I know what they're going to tell me, right? They're going to tell me it's fine. Instead, I ask them, what did you fail at today? I want them to know that failure's okay. Failure means you're giving 100% to something, and that's the only way we learn. And so I want them to understand and embrace failure. So if we're not embracing failure, if fear of failure is keeping you from trying your best, keeping you from giving 100%, really rethink that. And think about, when was the last time you failed at something? Failure is always proof you tried. So go and fail again. Maybe you're not hungry. If you don't know what you want to achieve, if you don't know what goals you have, whether it's a weekly goal, daily goal, monthly goal, annual goal, short, middle, long-term goals, whatever goals, if you don't know what you want to achieve, if you don't know what you want to accomplish, if you don't have goals, you don't have anything to give 100% to. You don't have anything to give 100% towards. So make sure you have goals and aspirations that stretch your limits, that make you reach for it. Think about when you've really wanted something, how you've really focused on getting it. And that feeling of accomplishment when you did, it's because you set a goal and you gave 100% towards giving it. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you just don't care. And not caring about your job or the work you do is absolutely a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think we've all encountered people like this in our specific worlds, people that just don't care. And when they begin that downward slide, they don't realize that it's because they stop caring, and then they stop performing. So if you don't have a passion for what you're doing, if you don't have a passion for where you're working, what you're doing, then by all means, go find something else to do. Because if you don't have that passion, there's no way you're going to give 100%. There's no way you're going to be focused on doing your best. Maybe you're too busy. Maybe you're just too busy. Most people feel like they're so busy it prevents them from giving 100%. And honestly, that is absolute BS. Busy is an aimless activity that may or may not result in the achievement of goals. I always draw a mental, if I'm in a large room, I'm 3 times, I'll find the door eventually. But that's like being busy. But if I just take off the blindfold, walk toward the door and open it, that's hustling. That's being focused. That's not focusing on the task at hand. So if you think I'm wrong about the word busy, try to eliminate the word busy from your vocabulary for a day, just for one day. And you'll find that it's a struggle. It's one of my pet peeves. How you doing today? I'm busy. I don't know one person who's not busy. We all have lives and families and children and jobs and activities and parents and other things. We're all busy. We get it. Stop using that as an excuse to not give 100%. So when we allow these reasons or like I said, excuses to prevent us from giving 100%, it means we're good enough. In other words, we allow good enough to become acceptable. Do any of you really feel like it's ever okay to be good enough? Think about this. Several of your peers are sitting around discussing your work. And since it's the promotional products industry, let's assume they're sitting around a bar. So during the conversation, they're sharing their thoughts about your style, your vision, the way you go to market, your overall value. They just talk about all about you. And at the end of the exchange, at the end of the dialogue, the consensus among that group of people is that you're good enough. Think about that for a minute. Do you ever want to be known as good enough? My guess is you don't. because good enough to me is a euphemism for I'm comfortable being average. I don't care enough to give 100%. And I'd rather blend into the background because it's safe. I always think when I say that last line, I always think in terms of a 7th grade dance, right? Boys on one side, girls on the other. That's the safe spot. And the only ones who had a good time at the dance are the ones who are bold enough to go to the middle and ask someone to dance. So good enough to me is mediocre. And this also translates to your clients. If your clients are describing you as being good enough, you can rest assured they're going to find someone else, another dance partner, who actually does continue to strive for greatness. Now, it's good enough. The way out of good enough isn't magic. It's passion and purpose combined with action. So when you have a steadfast commitment to giving 100%, people not only follow your lead, they begin to strive for greatness as well. Now, it's impossible to give 100% of the time. It just is. It's the same reason a car has a red line on it. If we get in the car and you hit the gas and go as fast as you can, the car is going to perform at a high level for a period of time, but at some point it's going to burn out. And we are no different. We can't give, it's not feasible to give 100% 100% of the time. In fact, it's probably unreasonable to expect to give client orders product, we source the product, we make sure it's decorated properly, we make sure it's shipped to the right location, to the attention of the right person on the right day, and then we invoice it properly. And I'm sure we're all really good at invoicing. I know I'm
Bill, your sound has dropped. It's cut out. Is your internet connection working, Bill? Oops. Bill, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Hey, there you are.
I'm back. I'm so sorry about that. I know I see some notes. We've lost audio several times. I'm sorry about that. But this is live and that happens. So the show must go on. So I will continue.
Okay.
I'll just take a guess where I was at. Sorry about that, everybody.
You were talking about why a car has a red line.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so a car has a red line. We can't give 100% all the time. The same reason a car can't be driven with the gas to the floor 100% of the time. It's going to perform for a certain period of time, but at some point it will give out. So as human beings, it's unreasonable to expect to be great and give 100% 100% of the time. In fact, it's unreasonable to expect to be great most of the time. So it's about choosing the right times to give 100%, and I'm going to go through those right now. So in the promotion, the big things really well. The machine works in the promotional products industry. We source product, we decorate the product, we deliver it to our clients. We invoice for that product, and I'm sure we're all really good at invoicing. I know I'm very good at invoicing. So we all do the big things really, really well. It's the little things where we need to place some focus, and I want to share those with you today. Number one is you can't have $1 million dreams with a minimum wage work ethic. And I think we know there's a lot of people who have all these grandiose dreams about how they're going to be successful, they're going to sell more, they're going to do more, but they don't have the work ethic to go along with it. So you can't have $1 million dreams with a minimum wage work ethic. If you have $1 million dreams, have the work ethic to go along with it. Number 2, multitasking. Most people feel they're really busy. I'm here to tell you, I don't care who you are, you're not. No one is. Multitasking is more of a myth than anything else. And I think about it this way. If I'm sitting at my computer and I see the little email envelope pop up, I'm as ADD as the next person, and I'm going to go, no matter what I'm working on, I'm going to go over and check what that email is. And then I have to, maybe I answer the email, maybe I delete it, maybe I file it somewhere, but then I go back to where I was. Let's say I was working on this presentation, and I have to put my brain back where I was working, what I was working on, and it takes a couple minutes for me to get right back into that flow. I think we've all had that, where you're working on something and you're really focused and you get interrupted and it takes a while to get back to where you're at. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about multitasking. Multitasking prevents you really from giving 100%. It takes twice as long to do something, and usually the results are not nearly as high as they would be if you focused on a single task. What I like to do and what I suggest people do is focus on the task at hand and only the task at hand for the time you're going to be working on it. That's not saying start a project and finish it all the way through without doing anything in the middle. It's saying for this half hour, I'm going to work on this project and that's all I'm going to do. I'm at the point now, I actually turn off my email. I actually have my email on. I turn it on first thing in the morning, of course, and I check email and I answer them, and then I turn it off. And I turn it on again about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. I'll see what popped in, and I'll answer them. It takes me 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll shut it off. And I'll do it again at 2, and I'll do it again about 4:35. That helps me not focus on being so reactive and so responsive that it's overkill. I look at it like when I get on a plane. When I get on a plane, it's one of the few places I don't have a leash. I generally don't get Wi-Fi on a plane because I don't want to be tied down. It's my time. When I land wherever my destination is, of course, I do the first thing everybody else does. I turn my phone off of airplane mode, and I check my email. And I might have 15 to 50 emails. Doesn't matter. But I can go through them in 15 minutes because if I get, let's say, 20 emails, there's 10 I can delete. There's 10 I can delete. There's 5 I can file, and there's 5 I probably needs my immediate attention. So, and no one feels like I'm not being responsive because I was out of pocket for an hour or two. So give the tasks that are important to you the attention they deserve, and you'll find that the quality of work is a lot better. This is not a Billism. This is science. Feedback. I love this. Always 100% of the time, ask your clients for candid feedback. What I mean by that is we all client meetings and we say, hey, how are we doing? And they answer us the same way our kids do when they come home from school, and they say, fine. And most people just white knuckle it and say, great, awesome, I'm going to move on now and focus on what I want to talk about. Instead, I would encourage you to give 100% and challenge your clients. Give them permission to really give you feedback. So when I'm presented with someone telling me I'm doing fine, I'll say something along the lines of, I'm glad you think we're doing well. That's fantastic. I'm sure there's something we could be doing better. But the sweatshirts you sold us last October, out of the 100, there were 3 or 4 that had a hole in the right underarm. It wasn't a big deal. We had plenty to cover the event, and I just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. As a distributor, isn't that something you'd want to know? I know I would, because I guarantee you they're telling you it's not a big deal, but if your competitor gets in front of that buyer, I guarantee you the first thing they say is, oh yeah, the guy I'm using now, they sent me 100 sweatshirts and 4 of them had holes in the underarm. I couldn't even use them. They never even called to follow up. That's where you get real connection with people. That's where you build the relationship. So 100% of the time, ask for honest feedback. Be passionately curious. And what I mean by this, it has to be genuine with enthusiasm. Being excessively enthusiastic comes across as super disingenuous and turns people off. It's like walking into a car dealer and the salesperson's overly excited. We've all had experiences like this. And starts telling you which car is best. What do you want to do? And what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you walk into that car dealership and you have that overexcited salesperson? You want to run out the door, right? Instead, think of yourself as a doctor 100% of the time. What does a doctor do? When you go to the doctor, let's say with a broken arm, the doctor doesn't go, I am so glad you came in today because I have the perfect solution for you. You're going to love the fantastic surgery I'm going to perform. I'm going to fix that bone. We're going to set it. And if you look behind me on this wall, I've got 18 different colors of cast. Which color do you like? What color cast can I put you in today? If a doctor did that, wouldn't that freak you out a little bit? I know it freaked me out a little bit. No. A doctor asks about your history. He attempts or she attempts to understand your current ailment. They inquire about your level of pain and what activities you might have done to cause the pain. Because if you fell down skiing and broke your arm, that makes sense. Or fell out of a treehouse to break your arm, that makes sense. If you just fell very softly against a wall and broke your arm, there might be bigger issues to play. You might have osteoporosis or something else that is indicative of a weak bone. So that's why a doctor does that type of a diagnosis. So when you mirror that same dynamic in a selling situation, you replace that false enthusiasm with a genuine desire to help your prospects 100% of the time. So ask questions, diagnose the problem, and offer a real solution 100% of the time. Communication. Communicate with clarity, do it concisely, and do it candidly. I'm a big believer that our clients don't want perfect. I don't think anybody really expects perfect, but they do want honest. They do want candor. And feeding lies and half-truths is never a success. And I think I'll admit it. I'll be very transparent. There's been times I probably have not been cut. I guarantee you, early on in my career, there were times I was not fully candid with a client, hoping that it wouldn't come bite me in the ass. And you know what it did? It bit me in the ass. So be clear, concise, and candid with all your communications. If you screw up, own it. That disarms people right there. When you own a mistake 100% of the time, that disarms people. When you do that in all your communication, your clients will absolutely appreciate it. Exude confidence 100% of the time. They talk differently. When you have that fervent belief in yourself, in your company, in your solutions, it absolutely allows you to act fearlessly, to throw caution to the wind and without worrying about losing a sale or hearing a no. Be confident in who you work for, the solutions you're providing to your client, and be confident in yourself 100% of the time. The last one, 100% of the time, have the heart of a servant. The best salespeople, and I think we all know this, but it's easy to forget, the best salespeople aren't selling anything there at all. They're trying to help their clients. These are the salespeople that are consistently on top, the ones that clients refer to as friends, and I'm sure many of you have that, and they're the ones that share their success with others. It's that old Zig Ziglar approach, to get the things I want, I first have to help others get what they want. So you show me a salesperson who has a heart of a servant 100% of the time, I guarantee you that person has more than they've ever wanted. So here are the areas, to close up a little bit here, the areas you need to give 100% of your effort in all the time. Your work ethic. Single tasking. When you're focused on talking to a client, don't play around on Facebook. Don't look at your phone. Focus on that client. They can tell. Get honest feedback 100% of the time. Be passionately curious 100% of the time. Communicate with clarity, and be concise and candid 100% of the time. Be confident 100% of the time. And last, display the heart of a servant 100% of the time. Now, the interesting thing is, we don't decide if we're giving 100% at the right times, do we? The customer does. The customer is the one that ultimately decides if we're giving 100% of the time, and we need to keep that in mind. So you're going to get off this webinar. Hopefully you've learned a couple things. A couple things resonated with you. So what happens? What happens later on today when the poop emoji hits the fan, or next week? I want you to remember one thing. I want you to remember to care. And what I mean by that is the C, client focus. 100% of the time, be focused on your client, what they need, how they need it. That client focus will pay you back in spades. Accountability. Accountability to your client, accountability to the company you work for, to your boss, to your coworkers, to your family, but all be accountable to give 100% of the time and your effort at the right times. Relationship. R stands for relationship. This is still an industry very much built on relationships, and you can build those relationships, and those relationships absolutely reduce friction throughout the process. All these things I'm talking about, giving 100% of the time or 100% effort in at the right times, they reduce friction. Focus on building those relationships. And last, creating that customer experience. That's really what your clients want. They want a purchasing experience. So care. So it's focusing 100% of the time on the client, being accountable, building relationships, and creating that customer experience. I think there's a couple times left. Hopefully I'm still alive here. I can't tell if I'm on or not. I know there's some sound issues I've seen.
You're still on, Bill. We did have a few sound issues. And I think we're having them now.
All right. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Now you're back.
Someone asked me to break down care again. Absolutely. I apologize. It looks like we had some sound issues. Care stands for client focus, being focused on what the client wants 100% of the time, being accountable, and that means from your coworkers, your boss, your company, to your client, to your family, but most importantly, being accountable to yourself, focusing on building relationships. This is still very much a relationship business, and creating a client experience where people are happy to give you money again and again because of the experience. You've removed friction from the process.
Great. Anyone else have any questions? Here we go.
Let's see. Deanne, or Dr. Ann Wells, from Tyler. You said something earlier when you were talking about busy. It started with passion and purpose. What was the last part? Busy. So to answer that, busy is passion and purpose combined with effort. So you want to get out of busy. It's passion and purpose combined with action or effort.
Wonderful. Those are some great ideas and great tips. I like to say commitment starts at 100%. A lot of people, will say they're 100% committed. Well, is there anything less than that? Would you ever say to your spouse, I'm 95% committed to this relationship? Commitment starts at 100%, and it makes a big difference. And particularly when you can bring in that passion and the heart of a servant leader.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
I don't see any other questions coming in, so once again, I'd like to thank everyone. We have recorded this, and I will be publishing it and sending it to your executive directors later this afternoon. Also want to remind you that on April 26th, we have Seth Barnett from PPAI speaking on how to market to millennials. So mark that on your calendars. As you exit the webinar, if you fill out the survey and send me your PIN number, I will submit it to PPAI. And again, if you don't know your PIN number, your executive director can help you with that. Today's webinar was worth 1 CAS credit. Bill, thank you so much. I really appreciate your servant leadership and your heart for serving this industry and making it a better place.
Happy to do it. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. I'm so sorry about the sound issues. Wish I could do something about that, but sometimes technology fails us.
Sometimes it does.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Bill, and thanks everyone for tuning in today. And we'll talk to you next month on another edition of Wild Wednesday webinar. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.